was just like Steph should have got it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you can make an argument for that. I'm cool with that. But I have some really good arguments, not around Steph, but around some other guys. That when my career is long and gone, I'm gonna really talk my SHIT.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the CJ McCollum Show. As you know, my co-host Izzy Gutierrez is across the screen from me. As we record this podcast, I'm currently in Chicago. The Pelicans stand 5-5. We've had a lot of tough games. There's been a lot of close games throughout the league. And I think the funny part to our 5-5 start is that we are 3 possessions away from being 8-2. And I don't think that the casual fan understands how much that eats at me. But that's the game. You know, you close out games and you don't close out games, and it changes your record. You look at a team like the Blazers who have 4 buzzer beaters, and if they don't make those 4 buzzer beaters, that changes the way their season looks. And right now they're riding high, very high. Izzy, how close have the games been throughout this season? How competitive has it been in this season compared to years past?
It's crazy. I've got my eyes on the Heat games a lot. And I'm pretty sure they've had like 3 out of 4, maybe 3 straight, like last possession type of games, or at least possession where, to sort of put the nail in the coffin, up 2 or something like that. And it just feels like I'm getting a lot of that. And I don't know if this is, because some of that is teams like Utah, some like surprise teams that aren't supposed to be any good, all of a sudden, making things interesting. You've got obviously the teams that are sort of better up and coming teams that are just, you don't really know what to expect from them, like the Cleveland Cavaliers with Donovan Mitchell. Just feel like a lot of these games are sort of shaping up to early on, like a lot of big leads being blown, and in the end getting a close game. I don't know if the numbers pan that out, but it feels like, and maybe it's just because it's you talking about it, having already played 3 overtime games, that it feels like that's just been the case so far.
Yeah, it feels like it when I'm playing, that the games are more competitive. Like, even you look at the game we played against the Warriors where they sit Steph, Clay, Draymond, and Andrew Wiggins. It's still a competitive game. Like, their backups obviously are getting more minutes. It's hard to scout them. There's a lot of things that go into that, but I just think the disparity of games is closer than it's ever been. I sit on the competition committee. So we have interesting conversations about the game.
How do you have time for all this, by the way? When does the competition committee meet during the season?
You'd be surprised. Game day, we had a 3-hour meeting. I don't know how many hours it was. It was on a game day. The day we played the Phoenix Suns was our last competition committee call. And it's ironic because you're on the call with, obviously other GMs, other coaches, other players. It was 90 minutes, but it felt like 3 hours. And you're basically going over the game, how the game has evolved, the changes that you've made to the game. They're showing video clips of take fouls. And then we're talking about the disparity in the game and how close it is. And I think based on the conversation that we had, these are the closest scores we've had since 2014. So that takes it back, almost 10 years to where the game is very competitive. There's a good competitive balance. Obviously, it's early, but you can see, 1 through 8 are very competitive, and 8 through 16 are even competitive. If you look at the Warriors in a dogfight with the Sacramento Kings not too long ago, where Steph had to put up 47, 8 and 8 and shoot 70% from the field in order for them to win.
One of your games that didn't go to overtime against the Pacers, lost in Indiana 129-122 there. It's funny, we were talking about Myles Turner, and he dropped like 37 and 12 in that game with 3 blocks. Is he playing really well? Is he selling himself? Did he listen to the podcast? Was he mad at you?
That's my guy. He's a friend of the pod. He's a friend of mine. And it's unfortunate that he played so well against us, but I think he has a unique skill set. Like, he's a rare footer that is almost more comfortable on the perimeter than he is in the paint, right? In terms of his touch, his skill set, his pick and pop ability, the jumper, his arc, like his fluidity on the perimeter it's rare for a 7-footer to move like that and to be that comfortable shooting threes and popping, but to also be able to block shots and be like a rim protector. It's like that weird balance of love to shoot threes, but I love to protect the rim for our team. And like, he's a very unique player who's having a great year. And I think he's got a lot to prove, not just to himself, but to his organization, other organizations that, look, I'm healthy. I've been locked in. I've made some changes in my diet. I've made some changes in my preparation. I'm going to have a successful year for this team, but I also have a lot to offer if this team doesn't want me. And I think that's what he's kind of showing. And he spoke on, what he has to offer to not only his team, but other teams and a team like the Lakers. And I mean, he had 37 allowed, 37 on us. It seemed like every time he shot, the ball went in. He protected the rim really well, rebounded. He's a skilled young player with a bright future there or anywhere.
I just want to wrap this up on your team real quick, because it's always going to be a team of intrigue this year. We talked a couple of pods ago about 10 games in, pretty good gauge of what the teams are going to be like throughout the league. It's probably a pretty good gauge of what you guys have to sort of work on, really get going well to really max out your ability. Like, where do you sort of see you guys at the moment, 12 games into the season?
I think for us, we got a chance to be really good or slightly above average. And it's about execution. It's about finishing games. We'll be in most games, right? Like, we're talented enough offensively. We have enough great players. We have a good coach. We'll be in games, but to be able to make that jump to 50 plus wins, to a top 3, top 4 seed, you got to defend better as a team. Starts with me and the rest of the guys. Defend at the point, attack, and pick and roll. We got to be able to rotate better. We got to rotate faster on those back-to-backs and those dog days, those 3 and 4 nights. You got to still be able to perform and get off the better start so that you don't dig yourself in a hole. And I think right now we're not doing that. And I think that's the difference, right? Like I said, we had 3 overtime games, regardless of the fact that our starters have only played in 3 or 4 games together, right? Because of injuries. We have a chance to have been 8-2. We have the number 7 offense, the number 15 defense. We had the number 10 defense before we played the Pacers and gave up 129 points. So that shows you, and we were one of 4 teams with a top 10 offense and a top 10 defense. That's a recipe for playoffs and 50 wins in itself right there. So we're close. Now we need to stay healthy. Now we need to kind of learn from some of our mistakes. And I think it's good that we lost some close games, although I hate it. It gets you more accustomed to how to finish games. You learn from those mistakes and you better correct them. I think we got away with playing bad basketball at times, which is unacceptable for the levels that we're trying to reach. And if you win while playing bad basketball, I think it kind of gives you the incentive or the thought process that you can get away with that type of stuff. And we don't want to be able to get away with that. We want to hold ourselves to a higher standard. So 5-5 is not where I wanted to be, but considering our circumstances, considering where we're at offensively and defensively, we still have a lot of room for growth and a lot of areas we can get better at. I like where we're at.
So that if you were to define what your identity should be when you're at your best, is it high scoring team that defends maniacally, or is it defense first? Like, how would you want to describe your team?
I think there's no doubt offense comes easiest to our group based on the talent, based on the pieces that we have. But for us to take that step, we have to play harder at the defensive end and have more of a level of focus. Teams are going to score. That's just what it is. Like, best defenders in the world get scored on. Are we executing our game plan? Are we boxing out? Are we not preventing second chance opportunities? Are we doing the little stuff? The big stuff we're great at. Z can go dunk on 2 people. BI can hit fadeaways over 2 people. I can split a double team and hit the weak side. Like, we're good at the hard stuff. Are we going to be focused on the little things? Sprinting back on the shot in transition. Talking on defense, saying, I got ball. I'm 1 pass away. I got your shift. I got your help. Are we going to double when we're supposed to and trust that the backside guys rotating? It's like, those are the little things that we have to do consistently from a trust standpoint. And then that makes the game fun, because now we're getting out and we're running. Like the Pacer game, we played with a sense of urgency, but we were down 11-2. It's like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like, I was like, okay, this team will run away from us. Like, it shouldn't take that for us to have a sense of urgency. And I think that's part of being a young team. That's part of me not doing my job to the best of my abilities from a leadership standpoint, from an energy standpoint, to making the game more fun. Like, the game needs to be fun. And I think we kind of lost that these last couple of games with the travel, a lot of games, a lot of cities, 8 of our first 11 on the road. Like, it becomes a lot on the body. And I think we got to recenter ourselves and refocus.
Yeah, especially early, you got to make sure you include that fun element. But speaking of making things look easy, how is Luka getting better Still, like the run of games of 30 plus to start the season was at 9. Wilt Chamberlain, the only other guy in that conversation there, he's at 36, 8 and 8, basically 36, 8.4 rebounds, 8.3 assists as we record this, 1.9 steals as well, like 52% shooting. When you watch him play now, it feels like he is just the ultimate puppet master. Like he is the center of the circus there and just running everything and just seems like every single year gets a little bit more comfortable with it. And now just feels like he can run a team to perfection.
Yeah, I've been impressed with his poise. Obviously, he played in the Eurobasket this summer, so he probably came in a little bit better shape than he normally would, a little bit more polished because he went through a long training camp and games and dominated into the season. He's got more spacing. He's got another guy that shoots threes in Christian Wood. He's got a full year of Tim Hardaway Jr. He's got Dinwiddie. He's got his pick and pop bigs, Kleber. He's got what he's used to seeing. And now he's just a better version of himself. I think what I've noticed from him is his usage rate is a career high, right? Like everybody talked about how he holds the ball too much. Can a guy with a usage rate this high win a championship? Well, he's holding the ball more than he ever has in his career, but we don't notice it anymore. His usage rate is 38, which is insane. It's bonkers.
Yeah, that's
for perspective's sake. Almost James Harden. For perspective's sake, mine's like 25 right now, 24. And I'm the point guard, right? So He has a high usage rate. He has a career high field goal percentage, career high field goal, career high true shooting percentage, getting to the free throw line 11 times a game. He's doing all those things. So basically, he's holding the ball longer. He's become more efficient, more effective, still getting his teammates involved with the 8 assists per game. And he's getting 8 rebounds a game, which allows him to initiate the offense, especially if they're defensive rebounds. It goes right to offense. He doesn't have to get the ball. Like, he already has it. But, I mean, the 3-level scoring is there. He's shooting more middies, getting to the rim still. The step back is what it is. And he's not even shooting a great percentage from the 3-point line. He's shooting 29% on 8 attempts a game, which if the record stands, it would be a career low. So, like, there's still areas he could get better at, which means his efficiency would go up. I don't expect him to shoot 52% the entire year. Like, I don't think that's sustainable at 36 points per game, especially with the double teams that are about to come. But he showed that he is a serious contender for MVP, and he's single-handedly winning games for the Dallas Mavericks.
Well, it felt like, a couple years maybe there, it felt like you're saying he was kind of, not you're saying, but like you said, he's in better shape now. He was kind of working his way into shape. It felt like a couple of years back. So that's a good sort of way to look at this early start. But you also look at free throw attempts. His career high, second year, 9.2, but basically he's been hovering around like 7.5 free throw attempts per game. The other 3 years of his career so far, he's at 11.7 this year free throw attempts. His field goal attempts are up by 2, would be 2 more than he ever has in his career. And then you mentioned the efficiency. So all that does is basically give him more license to just up that usage rate, right? And I feel like with all those shooters around him, do you think those double teams can never really consistently come? Because it's a little bit of a LeBron situation. He's going to find the shooter and you're going to have to go rotate. Yeah,
I think teams although they have great shooting on their roster, you still have to do what you got to do. You got to live with it. You have to send doubles. You have to switch. You have to mix in some zone. He's the type of player where you can't give him the same coverage the entire game because he's going to figure it out eventually. So you have to be able to roll the dice and hope that the other guys miss some shots.
And then what's it like just defending him in sort of the high post, whatever you call it, the mid post for him? Because it feels like, one drop step and he's at the rim anyway. Like with his size, what do you have to do to be able to defend him when he's backing you down and, presumably an opposing 1 or 2 man?
Yeah, I've guarded him some, and I think he's a unique cover because he's like 6'8", so he's too tall for most point guards, right? Too tall for most shooting guards, and if he's not too tall, he's too heavy. Too quick for the 4.5s, but still weighs the same amount. So it's a weird situation where I don't know if he's 250. Like, I don't know how much he weighs, but he's heavy. Like, trying to hold him in the post, he's very heavy, but still has quick bursts. Great change of speed, high release, and he's going to step back and he still gets to it, but he has a nice variety of counters and the ability to draw you in closer to get to the free throw line. So it's like you got to cover them out to 3, beyond 3. But if you get too close, I have an ability to manipulate the game and draw fouls, get around you, find the weak side, whatever the case may be. So he's an extremely tough cover who is only going to get better as he gets more comfortable with the American game.
Do we think, and does this actually happen ever? Because, you could sort of project into the playoffs and say, hey, teams scheming against you, 7-game series might not be as effective, might not work as well. Does it happen where coaches just won't use those strategies in the regular season, at least in the same conference, because they'll save them for the playoffs and just say, hey, if we lose to them in a 1-game setting, whatever. But we're not showing them how we're really going to defend him when it matters. Is that something that actually happens, or do you just do whatever it takes to win that singular game also?
It depends on the coach. I've seen coaches refuse to make certain changes because they feel like they may need to use it later on in the season. But I've seen some coaches just say, look, we got to get as many wins as we can. Throw the kitchen sink at them. We'll figure out new adjustments and new ways to throw the kitchen sink at them in April. But I think it just depends on the confidence level of whether or not you believe you can get to the playoffs and whether or not you believe you're going to be a high seed or not, because these games all matter, especially because of how close each team seems to be in the league this year, like how close the games are, how a scheduled loss is not necessarily a scheduled loss. Like a team could be on a back-to-back and they could still beat you. Like a team that you think is, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games under 500 could still beat you, a la the Lakers, right? Like we lose to the Lakers in overtime in a game in which we definitely should have won just based on the ESPN statistics alone, 99% chance of probability, and we lose that game. So it's like, with that in the back of your mind, you got to get as many wins as you can before it's too late.
All right, before we got a few minutes here before we got to talk to Andre Iguodala. So I'm going to throw a couple names at you that are in the top 10 in scoring right now, and you tell me what you think of them so far this year. Is a little bit of a intrigue level around them. Donovan Mitchell.
Love Don's game. I'm really happy that he's getting a chance to be in a new situation, new scenery, new blood. But you talk about a player who is knocked for his efficiency, right? Like they say, he didn't pass. He doesn't do this. He doesn't do that. He doesn't throw the ball to Rudy, right? Mm-hmm. He looks very happy throwing the ball to his teammates in Cleveland. 6 assists a game, 31 points per game. Efficiency is through the roof, basically 50, 40, 90. Obviously not the 90, but he's got the 50 and the 40. Dunking on guys, running the show alongside another ball-dominant guard in Darius Garland, who's an all-star. And then he's got all of those wings. He's got Kevin Love. I mean, I'm really happy for him, and to see him flourish like this in the show. They talked about the Dwayne Wade comparisons. He's obviously a better shooter than D Wade, and D Wade's my guy. He would admit it. Don has a lot of him in terms of the athleticism, ability to finish around the basket, with maybe a craftier handle and a better jump shot.
Yeah, it's a little different. But that's pretty much what people said when Donovan got in. It's D Wade,
not D Wade, but like
shot.
You could see some of it.
Right. And then here's the last name. SGA in OKC, Gilgeous-Alexander, who's been on a streak lately.
He's one of my league pass favorites. A monster. 3-level score, terrific pace, big guard, starts well. He's got a midi, he's got a floater. He can bang too with a little bit of mid-post game, changes direction, shooting a 3 with more regularity, with more comfort. His pace is what you should show the kids at a clinic, like how to change speeds, slow, fast, fast to slow. The game looks very, very easy to him. I think out of his last, there's a stat I seen. I think in his last 30 games, he scored over 30 in 18 of them. If you include last season, he is going to work, like getting to it. I don't know if it's personal that people say that they're trying to get picks every year, if that's like pissing them off or what, but like he is getting to it.
Well, it does start to feel like like a De'Aaron Fox situation or something like that, where it's just like, hey, this is a great talent and we all want to see him, but let's put him in a good situation here so we're not wasting this level of talent, right? Because I mean, he is currently in the top 10 in the league in scoring, and he's got a PER above 30 at the moment. So it's something that it's not just you want to watch. It's a lot of teams, winning teams, should want to have that guy on it.
Yeah, he's a monster, man. I really like his game. I love his pace, and I like his work ethic. I've heard legendary stories about how he works, which is what I love to judge people by. Is what's the trajectory level of them based on their work ethic. Now we want to welcome a special guest, friend of mine, the first vice president of the National Basketball Players Association. I'm going to read some of his statistics. He probably forgot about some of these. 4-time NBA champion. He definitely didn't forget about that. NBA Finals MVP in 2015, All-Star in 12, All Defensive First Team in 14, All Defensive Second Team in 2011, NBA All Rookie First Team back all the way in 2005, First Team All Pac-10, Pac-10 All Freshman Team, Second Team Parade All-American. I forgot something. 2 gold medals. The 38-year-old small forward from Springfield, Illinois, Andre Iguodala. Oh, and I also forgot bestseller on book that came out a few years ago titled The Sixth Man. Welcome to the CJ McCollum Show.
You forgot something. It was Pac-10 All Academic Team. That's the only one I like a lot. That's the only award that I like out of all the awards.
Pac-10 All Academic Team, which is tough to do, especially going to Arizona, which is a huge party school. I commend you on that.
Yeah, and no one's getting the work done to make the All Academic Team. So that was my doing. No one has someone else doing the work to make the All Academic Team.
Yeah, they just have people. That's true. No, that's a great point. I like that. I like that a lot. Obviously, I feel like we should start with the championships, right? Winning 4 championships is an amazing feat. You've done it in different ways. You played different roles in all those championships. As a guy who hasn't won one yet, I think that's the one thing that, I think would solidify all the work and all the things that you sacrifice for. What goes into winning a championship, and what does championship DNA look like? Because when you have a young team, you're trying to explain to them daily habits, right? This is what it takes. That back-to-back that you don't really feel like playing in, it matters down the road for seeding, for building. We've lost 3 overtime games, right? We're 5-5. We could be 8-2. That's 3 possessions that we just either carelessly let slip away, free throw rebound, turnover here, and miss rotation there. What does basketball championship DNA look like? How do we replicate that?
Yeah, I think it's attention to detail, attention to the fundamentals. It's really all the small things, because we're all so talented. It's a fine line, a very fine line. It's like the sound of speed, right? You can't see it nor hear it. It's that small of a difference from, the superstars to, the 5th, 6th man on the bench. Everybody in the league is good. And you got a handful of teams that have a real shot. And as crazy as this may sound, considering Netflix documentaries and things like that, you do have to have star power. You know what I mean? And it is the business aspect to it, but it doesn't guarantee that you're going to win it. And I think the details, it's in the details. And, I was in Miami. I was very fortunate enough to experience that time down there. And, you can say what you want about them. They always overachieve. And they have just this champion, the way they run the organization is they will never try to get a high draft pick. They're always going to try to shoot for winning the championship, no matter who's on their roster. And one of my favorite words Spo used, and I just picked it up and put it in my vocabulary, is specificity. Specificity. He would always say that word, right? And every time he would say it, I would crack up laughing. But it was just it's the truth. And being an older player, sometimes I find myself just nitpicking, but I think that's just a part of the DNA to be the champion. Is you have to nitpick over and over, and it's almost like an obsession. Tom Brady, they say, has that obsession with competition, and it's the fine details. I just heard a story that he just wanted to hear a certain sound when the ball was hiked to him and hit his hands. It had to be a certain sound, it had to be a certain way, and it's just bro, I'm just getting the ball to you. What matters what sound it makes, and that's the sound you want to hear, the same sound that Tiger Woods wanted to make when he was hitting the ball, depending on the trajectory he wanted the ball to go in. And it's the same, right now we're struggling on defense, and, we have to have certain things that occur on defense, and it's just your will and the effort. And I always say to guys, anybody can play defense. That's just inexcusable that you don't have good defense. That's just effort. you can shake somebody out their shoes and you just getting the guys up out of your screen when you got the ball in your hands. There's no way you can't keep the ball in front of you at the end. I was always one of those type of guys. And so, I think that's really where it starts, and just getting the guys to buy in on, a word I learned reading one of my favorite books was reverence. Just learning what reverence means is having that ultimate respect for the game. If you train with reverence and if you study the game with reverence and you appreciate the game when you play with reverence, and it's just everything you do that just everything that is encompassing of your life. If you have a reverence about it, especially with your job in the game of basketball, then I feel like that makes you a champion. But I say that to say it's easier said than done. Like, everyone talks a smooth game. Like, I got a 500 shots here. I worked out 3 times a day. I was like Kobe. I woke up at 4 a.m. and worked out. Then I woke up at 10 a.m. and worked out. Then I worked out at, 3 p.m. Then I worked out at 8 p.m. It's just like, it doesn't matter if you didn't put the right type of work in. Floyd Mayweather was, he was the one always speaking on that. Yeah, you can work hard, but are you working smart? And it's just about, having an appreciation for the game of basketball and having a respect for it. And I think that's a champion DNA. And I think it's in all of us. So we just got to put it out there and put it into action.
I would like the record to show that Andre Iguodala brought up the Miami Heat before I did, and I did not bring them up first because I'm known to be a little bit of a Heat homer, or at least reputed to be. But I did want to tell you a quick Spo story and then ask you a question about him and Steve Kerr. Back when I was a columnist at the Miami Herald, he was doing a press conference, and it was like, I feel like it was the second day in a row where he was using the word levity wrong. He was using it to mean the opposite, right? He was using it to mean something serious or whatever. And so I kind of went to the PR guy. I was like, hey, you might want to tell Erik that word doesn't mean what he thinks it means. And he told Erik, and the PR guy came back to me, and I just wanted to know, like, what did Erik say when he told him? Was he like embarrassed? And he goes, yeah, were they all laughing at me? And he was so concerned about it, right? And now he is like almost like a Zen master type. Right now, he's the guy with all the words of wisdom. And if he uses a word wrong, you probably think he's using it right anyway, right? So
right.
I'm just curious, between guys like him and Steve Kerr, like, you get, for somebody like you who's been in the league for so long and you just hear so many coaches, like, what do they do that continues to capture players' attention, right? Because that you don't need a quote unquote new voice in there almost ever.
Yeah, I think it's their experience and their DNA. When you first come into a job, say you're a CEO, I deal with a lot of CEOs, especially in the tech space. I'm learning as much about them as possible. And then, how they lead, you try to get a good feel for that. And I had a lot of coaches throughout my career. I was in Philly for 8 years and I had 6 coaches in those 8 years. And so you learn different qualities and traits about coaches, some good, some bad. And, the good ones, they're just very consistent and they have good follow through. And when I say consistent, they're consistent in who they are. You don't see them changing too often outside of like their normal character. Like, Steve is normally a laid back guy, good energy, good vibes. He wants you to come to work and just be happy and enjoy playing a game of basketball. And he doesn't waver too far outside himself. Like, you don't see him, cracking jokes or trying to do things that isn't natural to him. And then Spo's the same way. He's got that same energy. Spo loves big games. Like, we were going into Utah. I think it was my first trip. Met him on the road, and Utah was playing really well, and they were one of the top teams in the West. They might have been like 1 or 2 in the West at that time. This is like February. This is before the COVID hit us. Okay. And the way he walked in to shoot around with this bop, and like he had that like twitch to him, and I'm behind him laughing because I've been in like 1,000 games. I'm like, yo, he is really excited about this game tonight. But how long has Spo been coaching? He's got 2 championships as a coach. He went and go to the finals that year. He's been in the finals a handful of times. And for him to have that same type of energy for a regular season game in Utah, I think that speaks volumes to who he is. And he has a reverence for his craft. Every time he walks into the gym, he wants to get the most out of that day. There's a mantra there. You want to get 1% better every day. And I think he lives by that. And so it's easy to buy in when, a lot of, you've had coaches throughout our careers where, they be having one foot in, one foot out. They know they're about to get fired, or they might be on their last this their third coaching gig, fourth coaching gig, and like, man, I'm just gonna chill, man. I'm not gonna kill myself again. Just coasting along the way, and no matter the season, no matter what, like I've always seen him be locked in, and I got a lot of respect for that.
I love the anecdote of the bop because the Spo bop, he be getting excited and he gets to move around and excited.
See him call timeouts. He walking on the floor to have court.
Yeah,
he makes sure he flops with the jacket too.
Yeah, definitely flops the jacket. My question is more related to how the league has evolved. We talked about you getting drafted in 2004. I think Iverson was still in the league. What was the league like on the court, first and foremost, the way the game was played? And what was it like off the court, and how has it kind of changed now that we look to 2022?
That's a really good question. I mean, as far as the game goes, there wasn't that same emphasis on the three-point line. I remember like my first 4 years in the league, like the course of my career, I probably shot the three ball better than expected because coming out, I was considered a non-shooter. But even my rookie year, I knocked down some threes, and it was like a surprise to the other team. But even from my own coaches, even from the organization that I was in, I shot decent from the three, and he was only taking 1 or 2 threes a game. Like that was max. But if you shoot 2 threes, they looking at me like, hey man, go to the rim and dunk every time. Like that was that was the game plan. Stop shooting jump shots, just go dunk it. And I'm like, I know I'm 6'5" and 3/4 without shoes. And it was a center-centric league up until I don't know how many years ago, right? Like the center has been gone from the league not that long in the grand scheme, maybe 10 years, less than 10 years. But back in the day, like you had to have a center. And James Wiseman, my teammate, and I'm like, once we get a dominant big man back, that the game's going to change again. It's just a matter of time of who's going to change it. And so back then there was a lot of mid-range, it was trying to get to the paint. Defense was big. I was just talking to Evan Turner. We do our podcast Point Forward, and we were having a conversation about if you gave up more than 25 points in the game, it was like hell to pay the next day in practice. Like you looking at the scoreboard, we gave up 27 in this quarter. Like what the hell is going on? Like it was almost like Armageddon.
A random number. Just because
couldn't give up 25, more than 25 in a quarter. And now teams are putting up 45, 50 in a quarter, and it's like it's okay. Like it's just where we're going. And so, those are the big differences in the gameplay. The game's much faster now. We're shooting more threes. We got the wrong guys shooting threes, but they're starting to make it at a higher clip. Analytics playing a larger role. I think back in the day, it was more, there was more of an eye test. There was a more weight on the eye test. Like you looking at a guy and you're seeing, okay, I can throw a ball to a guy and say dribble 2 times, and that lets me know if he can play or not. You know what I mean, CJ? Like, CJ, I put the ball in your hands. You're not just going to dribble 2 times with your right hand. You're going to bing, bing. And I'm like, oh, got it.
Yeah,
got it.
True.
You know what I mean? You can just
true.
tell how a guy walks. Jay-Z, I'm a huge Jay-Z fan, my swagger walk like a ball player.
Yeah, no matter where you are what you are, player.
Exactly.
You can try to change, but that's just the top layer.
Right. You was who you was before you got here.
Exactly.
And so now we're more or less like looking at a piece of paper or a screen that is telling us if a guy's good at basketball or not. And I think we like that. There's a disconnect there. And so, yeah, our skill set may have gotten a little better now, but there are other things. And I think at some point it's all going to come back together and the game is going to be amazing. So I hope that happens, soon. We got a good young core players, the Brandon Ingrams, the Jason Tatums, the Luka Dončić. Giannis is pretty much still young. So, we got some good ball players out there. As far as off the court, you and I were just talking before, and you made the point about there were no Ubers, there was no DoorDash.
There was no dress code when you first got in the league for a year.
My first year, there was no dress code. But this is the crazy story. This is when I knew. And it's like we go through different times, and there are different events that happen that change the complexities of the rules going forward. So this one was, I saw a team, I won't say the team name because I don't want to kill those guys. I saw a team come in, and they get off the team bus as I'm walking into the arena. And so we didn't have the fashion that we have now, but guys still had a sense of self, and they still like Allen Iverson. he still came to the game dressed up. It might have been big, baggy clothes, but, you know, he wanted to look a certain way. He was presentable and he wanted to represent, you know, himself and his values and what he thought coming to the game. So he was still dressed accordingly. Like, he looked nice. Like, he had his jewelry. He had his
You could
clothes.
put him on a magazine cover the way he came to work.
His clothes was iron.
Source magazine.
Right. But it was, back then it was fly, right? So it was like, oh, he killing it. You know, he got his Timbs, he got his tee, he got his jeans, whatever. But it was clean. It was all brand new every game. I saw a team come in, and man, I saw, like, it was bad. Like, I saw a bunch of fur coats. I saw some white tees that went down to like the knees, and this is like on 6'8" guys. So
I think I know this team.
Like, it was
I'm
bad.
not gonna say anything.
I said fur coats, so I kind of ruined it, but it was like 2 or 3. I saw 2 or 3 fur coats, like a lot of colors, and I saw like 2 guys that I cringed looking at. And, you know, when you cringe, it's like, you know, you at the family or you out in public and you with your people, and then another group of people looking at you funny, and you see why they're looking at you funny, and you feel embarrassed for your group of people. That's how I felt. Like, it was a dirty white tee, like it was dingy, but it was a big chain, like a huge chain, and then like big watch, big bracelet.
And you were a rookie, and you still
and I was a rookie, and I was cringing like, oh, this is bad. And then Malice in the Palace happened, and dress code. And so, you know, CJ, you've seen it, like, there's always small things that might happen throughout time, especially in our league. And then you see a rule get changed, and then you just sometimes you just got to think back, like, well, what made this rule come into play? Like, why are we adding this rule, or why are we trying to implement this or that? There's always those events that pops off on Twitter, and it's getting a lot of traction on Twitter, and then we got to address it for the future so it doesn't come up again. And like, we're in one of those times right now.
Yeah, it's wild to think about the changes, and the fact that you played with the Malice in the Palace is crazy. Yeah. I was 15. I'm a 91 baby, so I was 14 or 15 in 2004, which is even crazier to think about for the casual fans listening and the fans that aren't so casual. We didn't have pregame meals back in the day, so I used to eat peanut butter and jelly and popcorn before every game.
That's nuts. Like, they don't even take care of you with pregame meals. Was crazy.
No, I was too cheap to order room service, so I did the peanut butter and jelly, and then I would go to the media room and steal food from the media. And I'd be like, "What y'all having today?" And then I would go take a plate out of there because, you know, Izzy, y'all get food in most of the arenas. Y'all got a little room area.
Sacramento, Utah, 2 of my favorites with the food. The only reason to go there, though.
Yeah, but, you know, like, back in the day, like, these guys don't understand. You had hotels, like, we weren't always at the Four Seasons or the Ritz. Like, you got some Marriott's, or you got some Marriott. You know, I remember the Grand Hill commercial where it's like, no matter who you are, your budget, you got a place to stay in the Marriott family. We were on the low end of the Marriott family on a few trips where this was like, this was the best we can do. And
so, in a courtyard.
Yeah, like courtyard, right? And it would be like the room service would be from, you know, like 7 a.m. to like 1 p.m. and then it shut down and you couldn't get in until 5 p.m. But your bus time is right in between there. So it's like, what are we eating? So, you know, you might have like Subway before the game, which is worse than being in college, right? So you had to like plan out ahead, like, all right, I'm in this city. Let me order room service early, or, you know, have one of the rooks go give me a decent meal early. Yeah, it was very interesting times. And you had taxis back then, like taxis were a real thing. And then, you know, you had limos. I forgot about that. You had limos back in the day.
Hotel cars too.
Right. Hotel cars and limos. But now you're like, why would you need a limo? There would be no other way to get around. And then you're supposed to be an NBA player. It was kind of like that. You know, we always got this reputation of how we're supposed to act in public. And so it was like frowned upon to get out of a cab, especially if you're going to the club. So you had to get a limo. A couple of guys would go. It was interesting times. I mean, we went to the malls too back then, because it wasn't like, we didn't even have, like, iPhones didn't come out till like year 7 or 8 for me. So, you know, we got a lot of flip phones and like, what we doing tonight? And you just hang out at the mall for like a couple hours. When you got on the road, you might go shopping. And I haven't seen a mall in so long, and I have no idea what guys do. I know they have their PlayStations or Xbox on the road, but I have no idea what young guys are doing on the road anymore.
You ever want to feel sad? Just go into a mall these days. It is a ghost town.
Right. Movies were big back in the day too. I don't even know, what do guys do on the road anymore? I really don't know.
One of my homies, I went to dinner with him in Indiana, at Capitol Grill because I didn't feel like leaving the hotel. He asked me what guys do on the road, and I said I do conference calls, I FaceTime my son, and I do Zoom calls and watch Netflix. I said I don't know, so I asked my teammates. They said they play video games and they watch TV shows because, like you, me and Dane used to go shopping in every city because we didn't shop in Portland. So we would land and we would go right to the mall, Houston, like Galleria, like you got your cities where you go. Lenox Mall, you in Atlanta, you go and shopping right away, and that's what we did. And then we got to a point where we started meeting people and they would just like, we could just text them like, yo, I want this. I'm gonna come in and try it on like that. But these young guys play video games and they watch Netflix. Like, I don't even know if they go out to eat. Like sometimes
I mean, in Indiana, there's just that one Steak and Shake. That's all there is to do over there anyway.
The Warriors love that Steak and Shake.
Steak and Shake. Hold on, before I forget. We didn't have parking my entire time in Philly.
So where'd you park?
At the parking garage of the Osteopathic Medicine College.
That's crazy.
It took to like year 6. What was the GM's name? Oh, I'm drawing the blank on my GM. He's my guy too. Oh man, I'm sad. Sorry, I forgot your name. It was my GM. He finally fixed it for us, where he started getting his lunch. And he got us parking on the first floor of the parking garage we had to use. Because most of the time, all the parking spots were gone. We had to circle up to like 4 or 5, then take an elevator, take the stairs down, and then walk across. And it's freezing cold snow up to your feet some days. And you had to walk into a gym you shared with a college. So, and then we didn't have a gym late at night. So it wasn't like you can go in the gym at night and get work in. Like it might be, and I'm not being funny, but it would be like it was a lot of Weight Watchers conventions in the gym, like all the time, like random. So you had to like schedule, like you had to call the security person to call somebody at the gym. And then you had to go through my man Lump, like, yo, can I get in the gym 2 weeks from the day? Like you had to set it up to go do your job. It was madness, man.
Billy King. Was that Stefanski?
Stefanski. Yeah.
Shout out to my guy, Ed Stefanski, Kevin's pops from my Browns.
Yeah, Ed was good people's though, and he like, I think the funny joke was he was like, "What do you guys want?" when he came in, and we were like, "We just need parking. We tired of walking up these stairs every day, and we want can we get some food? We hear other teams get like lunch, at least we get lunch or something." And Kyle Cover asked for dry cleaning because I think Utah would do dry cleaning, and Kyle got traded, and he was like, "I can give you some stuff, but you see what happened to the guy that asked for dry cleaning." It was a funny story.
I only think of the picture with the really long shorts of Kyle Korver every time I think of Kyle Korver. You guys give him a hard time about that, Dre?
We didn't, because the shorts weren't long. Because I remember I never forget, I used to wear Lacoste polos a lot. Like I had like 20 Lacoste polos. Like that was my first big NBA purchase. And I used to wear these polos, and they were like, they fitted around the arm, so it wasn't too baggy. But it was, looking back, it was probably big for now, but back then it was like a slimmer fit. And he used to always crack on me like, "Why you always wearing these tight polos?" I'm like, "Bro, my clothes aren't tight." And so it was just the times. So he didn't think Kyle's shorts were baggy, so we never said anything.
Okay.
Some great gyms. There was some great gyms there. I want to discuss basketball for a little bit. Your book was titled Sixth Man. I know you were a starter for a long time as a part of your career. You ended up transitioning to becoming a reserve for the first time. The casual fan doesn't understand the changes in your routine that you have to go through to come off the bench. As a guy who started coming off the bench first, I had to get used to starting games because it was like weird, like to be out there when it starts. Right. What was that like for your mental? And then for someone that's going through it right now, like Russell Westbrook, for example, right? He seems to be playing better now. He's in more of a rhythm. Seems to be playing more carefree basketball. What was that like from a preparation standpoint on you transitioning from being a starter to coming off the bench?
Well, I think from the mindset standpoint is where it gets to you the most, because I always tell people that the culture of basketball is starters versus scrubs. Like that was always what it was. Like even in high school, middle school, like if you weren't starting, you were considered a bum. So it just kind of goes with you. And you don't say that in the league because everybody's good, but there is something like there's a big difference in salary starting and versus coming off the bench. And so it's just that energy is always there, regardless if you could be the Spurs, like it was something coming off the bench. Now I think it changes when, you start now guys coming off the bench can get paid. Like Jordan Poole just got 140, Tyler Hero just got 130, and they're two guys coming off the bench. They expect themselves to work themselves to a starter role, but it's known once you get in the game, go crazy, right? Like them dudes just specifically said come in the game and go crazy. Like Manu Ginobili was like the beginning of that kind of, like Deatherstrip was good at that, and Bobby Jackson from SAC, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there was very few and far between guys like that. And so when you're in the starting, you're just used to like, I don't have to force the game. It's going to come to me. Like I don't have to force up a shot. I know I can get a shot anytime I want. I'm going to be out here for 35, 40 minutes. But coming off the bench is different because you don't want to mess up the flow that's already going on. Like if things are going well when you get out there, you just can't mess up the rhythm. Or if things are going bad and now you're just trying to help everybody else find a rhythm and you don't want to just, hijack the game. And so now you're just trying to find that good balance. And for me, it was hard because Steve would always say, find the flow. You know how, Steph and Clay were young, there was a lot of turnovers back then. It could get wild, they'd just be some crazy shots, one shot passes, and he would like say, go in and find the flow. The flow means move the ball from side to side. So my whole job is come in the game and just pass. But you know how it is, CJ, like you just trying to get a rhythm. Like, I just want to see the ball go in the hole. And I just want to be comfortable and confident out there. When you find the rhythm for everybody else, it's like you sacrificing your rhythm. So like, it was frustrating. I ain't gonna lie, but we were winning and, I just couldn't get in the way of winning. But I knew like once the playoffs came, I would need to have a rhythm, and you can't find your rhythm in the playoffs. Like you got to get your rhythm throughout the season. And that's another part of the championship DNA. And you saying like, you don't want to lose an overtime game or you don't want to give games away. Like giving away 4 or 5 games in the season is huge. And that's one game a month, right? And so I would always tell guys sometimes like, yo, man, how about you let me get 15 shots up tonight? I just want to know what that rhythm feels like. You know what I mean? But it's hard to do when you got back then it was only one all-star, but you had 1 and 2 in the making. You had Draymond and Clay in the making. So it was a struggle, man. I ain't gonna lie. But the funny part was like every game Steve Kerr would say it, and this is another thing, go back to talking about, how you get comfortable with Steve. He was saying the same thing all year. He was like, Andre, you're helping us more than you even realize. And I'm just like, this ain't making no sense. I'm looking at the stat sheet. It's like 4, 3, and 3. And he was like, no, I'm telling you, man, you the reason why we winning. Like, it's going to come out in the wash. That's his favorite thing to say. When you do what basketball says, do, shoot when you're supposed to shoot, pass when you're supposed to pass, sprint the floor, you're supposed to sprint the floor, be in help, you're supposed to be in help. Like, everything kind of works in like a karmic way. And he kept saying it. And I don't know, I mean, we both went to Arizona. So everything he was saying was making perfect sense in terms of like a basketball winning aspect, because we both were taught the same exact principles from Coach O. And so it was making sense, but it just wasn't comfortable. And then, it all came to fruition once we got to the finals where, everything was just clicking the way it was supposed to click. And, Cleveland was taking away certain things and the ball was just getting to me because they were, they were trying to take away this or take away that. And the ball just happened to find me and I was just ready to do what the game said, and it just worked out.
That's so interesting because I think of your career and I try to ask myself, like, what would I say your greatest basketball characteristic is? And I'm like, well, is it that athleticism from early on? Is it the defense that's just been there the whole time? And to me, I'm just like, the one through line is just, it's here, like your basketball IQ and the way you kind of bring joy to the game. I think that actually means something a lot of the time. And so So when Steve Kerr told you these things, you didn't see it yourself? Because I felt like somebody with your basketball knowledge would be like, oh, okay, I know how I'm affecting the game. He had to show or teach you that a little bit when you got there?
No, like I said, we both went to Arizona. So, like shell drill, like I do that in my sleep. Like that's how I got the starting position coming into the league, is because I had no problems on the defensive end with the principles or, help or getting into guys or guarding the best players. So, like we did shell drill every morning as a freshman, 7 a.m. every weekend. You had to wake up. And I didn't realize, I thought everybody was doing this. So when I get to the league and no one understands shell drill, it's just like, oh, Coach O was one of the greatest coaches of all time. But I didn't appreciate it until I left. And so it was similar when Steve came along. He's saying the same things to me I saw in college. So like, yeah, it makes sense. But I'm also understanding what it means to have a rhythm as a basketball player and having confidence. And CJ will tell you, like, confidence it can determine whether some guys are in the league or if they're not in the league. Like, we know a lot of guys that probably should be in the league, but they were in the wrong situation on the wrong team, and their confidence just got shot, and they never got it back. Like, I know a ton of guys like that. I'm like, what happened to such and such? And it was like, he just got the game just warmed down, or the system he was in, or the business of basketball just completely took him out, and he lost his love for the game. So I never lost my love of the game. I just felt like some games would end, and I'd be like, bro, will y'all just let me, like, I felt like I could have did a lot more tonight. I know we won the game, but I would go work out again right after the game. Like, I go from Oracle back to the Marriott, which is downtown Oakland. It's like a 10, 15-minute drive, and I'll just go work out, because I'd be like, bro, I got like 30 points in me. I need to get this energy out. And so I was doing that at the same time. But like I said before, we were winning, and so I was never the type to disrupt winning. So it was like, all right, if I get 2 points and we win, like in Philly, especially coming from Philly, like, the goal is to win. Like, if I had a bad game, like, please just let us win. Like, Lou Williams bailed me out a few times where I didn't play well, but we ended up winning because he was killing off the bench as a sixth man, and I can go home happy. And like, that was like, when you go through stressful moments like that, where either you got to play, or you got to have a big game, or if you do have a bad game, you got to pray to God that y'all just finding a way to win. As you get older, you start appreciating, like, all right, I'm cool with these 2 points as long as we just win. And then I'll go back to film, work on what I got to work on, and just be ready for the next game.
You talked about working out after games, the longevity of the career, right? I'm in year 10, and how I train is different. How I eat is different. I just took a nap, but I could have slept the rest of the day. Like, my mindset is different. How have you managed to keep the longevity, but also the love? Because I know that's a two-part question. A lot of times we accomplish our goals. We make this checklist of things, and you start checking them off, and then it's like, what drives me now? So how have you managed to continue to perform at a high level from a longevity standpoint, and how have you managed to maintain your love for the game?
Those are two really good questions, like, really good. And sometimes you just really got to be honest with yourself. Like, I've always loved basketball. Like, that's never went away. You know what I mean? And like, I can work out and work on my game. Like, that's easy. Now, just the business of the game of basketball, sometimes that affects the way I feel towards the game. Like, I say sometimes just looking at the business aspect, and then kind of how everything's viewed and everything that comes with playing in the NBA, I tell myself sometimes, like, yo, 13, 14 years was good enough. Like, don't play past that. Even that's a lot of years. That might be too many years. Like, I think Kyrie said it, like 7, 8 years, and then just take a sabbatical, go away for like a year, and then come back. Like, that's probably best for our mental health. Like, I really believe that for our mental health, you probably need like a whole year off, like MJ did. And then especially with our team, like we're on now, I'd have been to the finals, like, I don't lost count, 7 times.
It was a good streak. It was a good streak there.
Yeah, it was too. Yeah. You go to the finals too many times, and it just wears on you, and then it just adds up into a whole nother season. But I think with the longevity piece, like you said, working smarter. Chris Bosh probably helped me more than anybody. After we won our chip, I saw him at a CEO barbecue. Ben Horowitz from Andreessen Horowitz, the VC firm. And we just won it, and I hadn't worked out. And this is like, we're in July. And when I was in Philly, like, there was no time off. I probably took a week off a year. Like, that was it. Like, I was in the gym like every day. And that's what I always tell these young guys, like, y'all not in the gym as much as y'all think y'all are. Like, we wasn't no time off back then. If you didn't make the playoffs or you lost in the first round, you was right back in the gym like 7 days later. Like, you was back at it. And like, you were really trying to compete for a championship, no matter how bad you were. Like, it wasn't really as much tanking back then either. Like, no matter how bad we were, we really thought we were going to compete for a championship every year. As crazy as that sounds, like, we were kind of delusional, but it helped with our growth of the game. But Chris Bosh told me, take as much time off as you possibly can take. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, trust me, bro, don't touch a basketball until you start itching. And he was like, enjoy the championship. You don't realize the season's about to come back that fast. And if you don't take enough time off, you're going to get burned out early into the season. You might get up to a rough start. And he was like, so just take as much time off as possible. So I listened to that. Like, I got back in the gym, like, slowly but surely. Like, I'll get some shots up, but keep it quick, in and out. And then over, 2 or 3 weeks, start ramping it up. And then, like you said, like, you start getting a rhythm because you've been slowly ramping up, and now you all the way in, like, let's get it. But then there's like 2 weeks left, and everything's starting to, come together, and you start ramping it up going in the preseason. So then I follow that same path every year after that, because we went to the finals every year after that.
Chris Bosh
Like,
is a professional man of leisure.
I didn't touch basketball. Yeah.
You said you didn't touch a basketball when?
I didn't touch a basketball this summer because I didn't know I was playing basketball this year. I'll just be honest with you. But I've been playing but I was still around the game because my son just grew again, and he's the same height as me. So I go outside and we work on things, and I have to work on specificity with what I do with him. And so, like, we get to like the fundamentals, and I work on, like, fine tuning his game. And so it was almost like I was back in that mode anyway. So I guess that kind of helped.
Do you get mad when people say Steph should have won that first finals MVP?
Nah, because it's like trying to get, like, people don't understand when they say blocked by LeBron, like, they think that bothers me. And I'm like, if y'all do your homework, y'all will see I did a whole article with Chris Haynes, and I thought that was one of the greatest things I've ever seen on the court. Because it was so loud, it sounded like somebody got shot. It was like, boom. I like ducked when I heard it. But it's like, yeah, it's like the same thing with Steph. It was just like Steph should have got it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, you can make an argument for that. I'm cool with that. But I have some really good arguments, not around Steph, but around some other guys. That when our career is long and gone, I'm gonna really talk my SHIT, because I really don't like talking about my game as much. I'm still playing. I just want to stay humble. The karma, the vibes. Like, I always believe in that. Like, just be very respectful. When you hear MJ talk, I was a student of the game in terms of, like, just watching everything MJ did, and he never said he was the greatest. He never wanted to compare himself. He never wanted to talk about his accolades. And so I try to, I think that's the right approach. Like, but you do need your confidence, but I think it's just how you communicate it out to the public. And so I never talk about, like, what I did or what I'm good at, unless, like, I'm just really within the joy of the game, like passing or things that involve being a good teammate. Like, I can gloat about that. But there's a few things that I'm gonna get at a few people once I'm long gone.
As you should. I look forward to
Very
seeing
soon.
that. I got a few more questions before I let you go. The last question that I'll ask, or one of the last questions I'll ask, will be centered around your son. But before we get to that, you talked about your career and how it's going to be over soon. Mm-hmm. How did you come to terms with potentially walking away after this year? First question. Second question, has your career turned out the way you thought it would?
Two really good questions. First question was kind of like relief, like thinking you leaving on top, like, that's relief. The only thing that was like, I was like, I got something left, and I feel like I could have contributed more, but I really had joy in watching those guys win another one, but I was a big part of it. But just going through that, and seeing Wiggs, seeing JP, seeing Draymond, Steph, and Clay go to, like, get another one, and then just seeing Steph do what he did, and me being a big fan of his, it was like relief that I walked away, because I don't want to not walk away. Like, that's my biggest fear, knock on wood. But my biggest fear is not being able to walk away. I want to be able to just, like, walk off the court. But I think, TJ, I never really, like, thought about it too much. I remember being asked that question at the rookie transition program my rookie year, and I think they said, what did you want to do off the court? And I remember my answer, like, I want to build a business portfolio like Magic Johnson. And it's so funny, the response I got, and I understood it. He was just, he basically said, how you're a kid and you say you want to play in the NBA, and the teacher says, don't set your goals too high. It was a very similar response, like what Magic Johnson did might not ever be done again. So, try to be more realistic with what your goals were. And I was like, okay, I can understand that, respect it. So, I always just wanted to be able to walk away from the game or play long enough to get a pension. And it's 5 years?
You maxed it at 10. SEP IRA is maxed at 10.
Maxed at 10, but I think it kicks in after like 4 years of service. And so I said I wanted to get to max years of service. So, like, if I played 10 years in the league, like that was amazing. Because where I come from, like, guys have the talent, but they never make it for whatever reasons. Most of the time it's academic reasons, it's just not having the discipline. And so 10-year career was like, that would have been like best case scenario. So to play 19 years is, just a true blessing. Unreal. Just had a lot of great folks that I've been able to run into. And some bad folks I was able to run into as well that helped me along the way, because you got to be able to identify, the right people to be around and the wrong people to stay away from. And so I take it all in stride. Every team, every organization, every team it ever had. That's one thing I'm probably most proud of, is that I have a good relationship with every teammate I've ever had. Like any teammate I ever had can call me and I'll answer.
Even Memphis?
Yeah, they're my guys. Yeah, they're my guys too. I keep saying it's only one guy that I've got, like, whatever you call it, beef with, and I've never met him. He's never spoke to me. I don't even know what he looks like. If I were to see him, if he was in front of me, I wouldn't know what he looks like. But I'm a huge fan of all those guys. Like Jaren Jackson Jr. is, like, he's one of my favorite players. I text him. I got his number. I'll text him, stop fouling. You know what I mean? He fouls out every game. But I love that kid. Amazing kid. And then Ja, I talked to Ja. I play with Allen Iverson, so I've seen that talent, that cultural respect, the influence on the culture that he's had. And so just trying to, I've reached out to him. He's responded. He's a good kid. He's always shown me love too. He's a good dude to play against too. He has fun out there while he's trying to kill you. And so, Dylan Brooks, even, I talked about his irrational confidence, but that's what makes him great. And then they got Bane, who just shoots the lights out. I even had conversations with him in the game. So it's just interesting. We're going through these difficult times now, and how the media can, portray a situation totally different from what it actually is.
No, that was a really, really good answer. I appreciate you.
Smooth, very smooth.
Your pivot.
I'm trained, but I'm telling the truth.
Pivot game is very strong, man. Before I let you go, I just want to recognize the portfolio that you've built is probably very similar to Magic Johnson. Quiet is kept. You don't have to speak to that. I know it personally. Andre has gifted me plenty of deals. So shout out to my guy, Dre, including the Harvard project. And I actually attended my first tech summit that Andre hosted in the Bay back in 2000. I don't even know, 15 maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Time is certainly flying, man, but I appreciate you. My last question, I have a son. So how did you approach training your son in terms of the timing of it? Did he say, Dad, I want you to train me? Because I'm trying to figure out when my son's 9 months, so he'll be 10 months on the 10th. So it's way too soon, but
he's not going to ask you yet. Yeah,
he's not talking like that. Yeah. He's just saying dad, but that was my last question. And then I'll let you go unless Izzy has something else.
That's a good question. So I was just talking to my wife, DNA and the gene set is a powerful thing. We don't understand how powerful that is. And so for me, I always tell my son, listen, whatever you do, you can be a painter or you can be an electrician. I don't care what you do it to be the best at it. And so I'm going to push you really hard to be great at whatever it is you like. So do not play basketball unless you love basketball. And don't say you love basketball just because I play basketball. And so I try to get that out the way early. And I try to get him on golf. I just made him swing twice the other day, and his swing's better than mine, but he hates playing golf. But I got that in early. Look, you're going to learn how to swing the club. I'm going to force you to learn how to swing this club.
So smart.
Yeah, I would force them to play golf, force. I don't care. But then once they get older, they don't have to play anymore. Just you can build a swing in at age 6, 7. Once they get the swing, it never goes away. My son has a perfect swing. He's 6'6" right now, and he has a perfect swing. So he plays every 2 weeks, he hits balls, but he's never played 18 holes, but he can probably beat me if he just practice. Now, in terms of basketball for you, I know your background, you were super short your whole life, but you were nice. You had game. You know what I mean? And then when you grew into it, the packages came together. So your son's probably going to be very similar. So you can introduce the game to him earlier. I'm saying that because my son, I had him shooting early. We just going to work on your shot. We just going to get the shot right. Just get confident shooting. And then now I got to work backwards because all he wants to do is shoot. He don't want to put the ball on the ground. He don't want to he don't want to get in his bag and get to the rack, but he can. And so I also had to remind myself that I was a super late bloomer. No one heard of me until the summer before my senior year of high school. And then I grew after my freshman year of high school. So I was always good at basketball, but I wasn't physically gifted until much later on. So I had a lot of catching up to do. I'm seeing the exact same things in my son. And so I remind myself all the time, like, oh, he's just like you, but he got a jumper, like he can shoot, and he got like a solid handle. Probably don't have as much of a dog in him because he's a rich kid, but like he got everything. But people won't see it until I give him like 9 to 16 months before people can really see like, oh, wow. Because I was the exact same way. Like this fast twitch is going to kick in real soon. I always say when your nuts drop, that's when you start dunking on people. And he had his first body last week. He texted me like, Dad, he dunked on his best friend first time. And so now it's starting to come together. And now I can apply the pressure. Like, all right, now we got to get to it. Like now he's got a trainer outside of basketball, like just like physical, like just getting his body together, like
Gotcha.
Squats with no weights, planks. Like I'm just getting his body accustomed, because the problem with us or with me was I had to catch up to my body because I was flimsy. You can just touch me and I would fall. And he's the same way. But once I got my foundation, it was over. And so I'm just trying to get him aware of his body earlier. But your son's, you can get him introduced to basketball at like 4, just because that's how your DNA works. And he's gonna have his package together. And then he just, like, my son fell in love with basketball in the 2012 Olympics. Like he just needs to have that aha moment, like, I love it. And then your son, like the way y'all set up, like your son gonna have game. And you just gotta like,
I hope so.
don't force it. Like just be like, yo,
he gonna force it. He gonna know how to play whether he wants to or not. And that's my brother and I's rule is I'll teach my brother's son, he'll teach my son, so that there's no animosity. So when the summer comes, I go rebound for his son. His son is 2 and gets up 50 makes in the morning. Like he's a machine.
2?
Yeah, it's way better. Yeah. That's the way to do it.
My brother's son is 2. Yeah, he's been counting his makes. He's been counting his makes since 14 months. Yeah, he counts his makes.
That's impressive.
Only like in the house, in the house. But like, yeah, sure. I got video, Dre. Like he'll go to the Papa Shot, like an arcade, and he'll hit 10 in a row, and people will come watch. Like, this is crazy.
I told you.
It's wild.
What I just say? I say I got it. I got it.
It's wild to see. Like I watch and I think to myself, this kid has got the goods already. He has no idea.
Dre, I don't have another question for you, but I just wanted to let you know, I think I touched on it before. One of my favorite players of the league, I covered the league since 2000, and you sort of made my jaw drop at times. You've made me laugh a lot watching you play, and you've, you make me think a lot now as you've gotten older. And I think that combination makes you just one of the more memorable players I've ever seen, ever covered. And I actually think you're going to have probably just as much an impact after you retire than when you actually played. So just wanted to say thanks for being on, man. And, good luck with everything.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think sometimes we need to hear that more often just to help us, because, regardless of what people think, like it can, like that imposter syndrome is real, especially when your career is nearing the end, you're trying to figure out what's next, and you're trying to figure out, can you add as much value? And so like that's powerful to hear. So thank you for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll be in touch, brother. Your impact on the game is much appreciated. I went to Lehigh, so I was watching the Philly days down the street. ET is my guy for life. So I'm happy to see things have gone the way you wanted. I'm happy to see the success you're having off the court, and more proud of the man you are, the free thinker that you are, but how you're executing. And from a visionary standpoint, it kind of prepares me for what my life should look like when I'm done and how I want to set things up. So I appreciate you coming on. Let me know if you need me for your podcast whenever. We'll make it work.
Yes, sir. Appreciate that. And the TV deals were just right in line with you being born in 91 or not. What you say? What year were you born?
91. Yeah.
91. Yeah. So you good. Like, we had a lot of money that can be lost, but y'all got too much money. Y'all can't lose your money. So great job.
Hey, man, the good Lord looked out for the kid. I ain't gonna lie to you, man. You talk about out-kicking your coverage. I out-kicked my coverage in this hoop game.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest with you. You made me mad. You made me jealous because you had this beautiful watch on in one of the meetings, and I was like, I could kill him. I could kill him. Because the money we made, we have to think about those purchases. But the money you made, I'm like, yes, go get it. Please do. It's beautiful to see. Starts with a P, and the second part of the watch starts with a P too. So that's your hint.
Got it.
Blessings, brother. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir.